buddy.
Oh, they're gonna be terrible next year. I'm gonna say I try not. You always tell me not to speak in absolutes, but Florida's not gonna be good next year, man. Graham Mertz had problems at Wisconsin. Against weak competition. I watched him get his ass kicked against Notre Dame a couple of years ago. The guy doesn't have it. Him going to Florida under a coaching staff that doesn't develop quarterbacks, he wasn't suddenly going to have it in a tougher situation. Dude, they got to go after somebody in the portal. They got to entice somebody to get in the portal. Everybody's doing it. They need to do it.
I don't disagree. So, look, let me just say this. I'm not going to overreact to spring games. Repeat after me. Do not overreact to spring games. Do not overreact to spring games. However, bro, they're going to have to figure something out and quick. They are going to have to agree, not just quarterback. They're going to have to aggressively attack the transfer portal. Joe, I'm just going to tell you something. If I'm Florida, let's just say arguably they have 70 scholarship players right now, I would go get 15 dudes out of the portal, throw as much crap up against the wall as you can, and see what sticks. Mm-hmm. Because they just don't have the dudes that can be competitive. And Joe, number one, the score was 10-7. Now, they did not, to their credit, they did not show a damn thing. They just didn't. They ran the ball right into a crowded box. Some of this is a little inflated. There were parts of me that were asking, during watching that Florida spring game, are you doing this to make your new DC, Austin Armstrong, just look good? Joe, they were averaging 1.8 yards per play.
It's terrible.
Even in the running game. Like, even if you know what's coming.
Yeah, and ETN's supposed to be their best offensive player, I would argue.
Well, and he's not bad. I mean, you saw what ATN did last year. I mean, Look what he did against Tennessee. I mean, look what he did against LSU. Look what he did against Tennessee. He's not a bad player. He's a really good back. But, Joe, I hate to say this. I hate to say this. I think Billy Napier's on the hot seat, dude. I just don't know. I can't see them winning more than 7 games.
I said this in the offseason. This gives me such heavy Brian Harsin vibes. It gives me such heavy Brian Harsin vibes in the sense that you kind of hear the behind the scenes stuff. You hear about the stuff with the boosters, and then we have the whole Jaden Rashada saga. There's just too much going on.
Billy Napier's fault.
I know that's not his fault, but that's where it becomes very messy for a second-year coach that's trying to build a roster, and it's just not going the way that he wants it to. And usually if it's not going the way that he wants it to, there's somebody in the back end pulling strings. Very tinfoil hat-ish of me to say, but I don't know. I just get those same vibe where it's like, things did not feel very good about Brian Harsin, and we saw how that ended.
Well, I don't think Billy Napier is going to get popped for a sex scandal to get fired. I don't think.
Yeah, but yes, obviously not in that sense, but I would not be stunned if they start really badly, like a really bad start, like kind of like how after Auburn got beat pretty badly by Penn State in the beginning of the year. And that was when we started to really have those conversations. We were having them in the offseason, but at that point we were like, oh, wow, this thing might be coming down. I say one bad loss, and I wouldn't be shocked if middle of the season Billy's out the door. It's not a hot take. That shouldn't be.
Well, let me just say this, okay? Let me just say this for what it's worth. They had the number 14 overall class this year in recruiting. It's not horrible. It's not great. I will give Billy this, okay? They have done so far some good things in recruiting. They got the Lagway kid. They got Miles Graham, the linebacker. They got Hayes, the linebacker. They got Bowens, the running back. They have done some good things in recruiting, but those kids are for 2024. It doesn't help you right now. Joe, they go to Utah. They have McNeese. They had Tennessee. They have Charlotte. They could easily be going into that game against Kentucky at Kentucky 2-2.
And I think it's realistic that they go 2-2. And how convincingly do they lose to Utah? Because
Well, let
as
me
much
say
as
this
as much
now.
as we've grown about, as much as we get in down attack each other about Anthony Richardson, without Anthony Richardson and having a guy to just take over the game, that was one of those games where he did it. Like,
I don't
what?
disagree with that.
But here's where I'm at is that, like, who's going to help him win that football game? They don't have the athletes to beat that team defensively. Cam Rising's coming back, and they're just as good as they were. I mean, I don't know. That game could get messy.
You say that, though. You say that. But, man, do you really trust Utah playing an SEC team? I mean, if you thought that there was no reason.
I'm going to say yes.
I don't think you should.
But it's a bad SEC team. It's a bad roster.
Yeah, but Florida was bad last year. I mean, Joe,
they've regressed since last year. They lost their two best players in AR
here's the problem with that, though. The problem with that is they're the Pac-12 champions. Okay? Like, again, I talked about this ad nauseum. I know that you hate it. Utah's going to have to show me something, because here's the truth. Florida does, the one thing they do have, they still have some dudes up front now. They still got some dudes. They still have some 4-stars, okay? Like, so as an example, I do think that they have some freshmen that committed in this last class that could immediately come in and impact. The Kelby Collins kid was a top 30 recruit. Jakeem Jackson, the corner from Florida, a top 50 recruit. Aiden Mizell, wide receiver, a top 100 recruit. They do have some dudes and some freshmen that can easily come in here now and possibly do some things early on. Utah, with all due respect, does not have any of those dudes. They just don't have the outright talent that Florida has on their roster, in my opinion. I look at what Florida has done in the transfer portal. They went and got the Goodwin kid, the 5-star from Kentucky. That kid's coming in as one of the best tackles. Joe, you're going to sit here in 2 years and say to yourself, okay, well, you know what? Billy may have been bad at this area. The problem, though, is they've gotten some good dudes out of the portal, though, too. And I cannot they completely have revamped their offensive line.
That guard, too, might be coming back, the one who was supposed to go to USC. That was what I saw today.
Correct. Well, with that being said, they got, if I'm not mistaken, they got the kid from Alabama, George. They got Carroll from Tulane, the running back, who's a big-time physical back. They went out and obviously, like you talked about, went and got Graham Mertz. Cameron Jackson, another tackle who, buddy, I know 3 guys really well. 2 of them were at my wedding that coached on that Memphis staff. Cameron Jackson's going to be coming in and might be a day one starter. They have dudes, but the problem is, what I see as of right now is their offense is only going down to the quarterback and how bad it was. Don't get it twisted. They got some dudes up front. That's all I'm going to say. If they beat Utah as an example, it's because they out-physicaled them. And I think that this is going to show how good Billy Napier is as a coach. He's got to go find a quarterback. Joe, what's the problem if he goes and gets a quarterback in the portal?
Well, so here, look, as negative as I just was, and I know that we're going to get Florida comments because I'm also going to segment this and post just this segment. If they get a good quarterback that they can steal from somewhere,
they can be competitive.
I will concede my statement. I will completely remove my statement that they're going to be bad next year and that Billy could get fired. Who is that, though? Who is that? Can they go get Michael Pratt? Can they go after somebody like that is a high-level starter? Probably not. Just merely an example. But if they can go get somebody that was a high-level starter at a smaller program, that's what they need to succeed. I don't think going and getting Brock Vandagriff, who you told me is not possible because he missed the timeline to transfer to an SEC team. I don't know if it makes sense. And this isn't the type of certain situation to grab a backup quarterback that was a highly rated kid that hasn't played much. That's not going to serve them. They need to get somebody who's played, that has experience, like they thought that they were going to get with the Western Kentucky kid, Austin Reed. That was who was supposed to go there.